Have you ever noticed something strange? You're sitting in a room full of people. A big match is on TV. The room is loud. Everyone is shouting at the screen. Someone jumps up. Someone else covers their eyes. A goal is scored, and suddenly the room explodes with celebration. But then there's that one person in the corner. Quiet, calm, scrolling their phone, sipping tea, completely unmoved. No shouting, no cheering, no heartbreak. And you can't help but wonder, how are they not feeling anything right now? What kind of psychology makes someone completely indifferent to something that millions of people treat like life or death? Today, we're exploring the psychology of people who aren't obsessed with sports. In many cultures, loving sports isn't just a hobby. It's almost expected. Think about it. At school, conversations revolve around last night's match. At work, colleagues argue about players and teams. In cafes, strangers suddenly become friends because they support the same club. Sports become social glue. But then there are people who sit quietly in those conversations. They smile politely. They nod. But inside they're thinking, why is everyone so emotionally invested in this? To them, sports can feel like watching strangers chase a ball, while everyone else acts like it's the fate of the universe. So why does this difference exist? Psychologists say that sports activate the brain's reward system. When your team scores, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical linked to pleasure and excitement. That's why fans jump, scream, hug strangers, or feel devastated after a loss. In fact, studies from sports psychology show that die-hard fans experience physiological stress responses during important matches. Their heart rate increases. Their cortisol levels rise. Their emotions swing dramatically. But for people who aren't obsessed with sports, the brain simply doesn't fire the same way. Watching a match might feel neutral or even boring. Their dopamine might come from completely different things. Reading a fascinating book, learning something new, solving a complex problem, creating something artistic. To them, ideas are more exciting than competition. Here's another psychological factor: tribal identity. Sports fandom is one of the clearest examples of human tribal behavior. My team, our colors, our victory. Even though the players don't know the fans personally, the emotional attachment is very real. Researchers have found that sports fans often say "we won" when their team wins, but they lost when the team fails. It's a subtle shift, but psychologically powerful. The team becomes part of the fan's identity. But people who aren't obsessed with sports often build their identity differently. Their sense of self may come from learning, creativity, personal growth, ideas and philosophy, career goals. Instead of identifying with a team, they identify with their own journey. Imagine two different Friday nights. In one scene, a crowded stadium, thousands of people shouting, drums beating, bright lights, constant noise. In another scene, a quiet room, soft light from a lamp, a book open on the table, rain tapping on the window. For some people, the first scene feels thrilling. For others, the second scene feels perfect. Personality. Psychologists often talk about introversion and extroversion. Extroverts gain energy from social excitement. Introverts recharge in quieter environments. That doesn't mean introverts never enjoy sports, but the chaotic, loud, high-energy culture around sports may simply feel overwhelming rather than enjoyable. Here's something interesting. Many people who don't obsess over sports are extremely curious about other topics: psychology, history, technology, philosophy. Their brain craves depth instead of spectacle. Think about it like this. Some people love fireworks. Bright, loud, dramatic. Other people love stargazing. Quiet, slow, mysterious. Both experiences are beautiful, but they attract different minds. Let's imagine two different uses of time. Person A spends 3 hours watching a football match. Person B spends 3 hours learning a new skill, reading, or building something. Neither choice is right or wrong. But people who aren't obsessed with sports often see time through a different psychological lens. They ask questions like, what will I gain from this? Will this help me grow? Could I use this time differently? Sometimes this mindset makes them prioritize personal development over entertainment. Here's something many people don't realize. Our interests are heavily shaped by childhood environments. If you grew up in a house where every weekend revolved around sports, where parents cheered during matches, where family conversations were about teams and players, you're far more likely to develop a passion for sports. But imagine growing up in a house filled with books, documentaries, discussions, and curiosity about ideas. The brain learns to associate excitement with learning rather than competition. So when those people grow older, sports simply never become their emotional world. Some people don't enjoy sports not because they dislike them, but because they see them from an observer's perspective. Instead of feeling emotionally invested in the outcome, they analyze the situation. They might think, why do fans react so strongly? What psychological need does this fulfill? How does group identity influence behavior? In other words, they're not just watching the game. They're watching the people watching the game, and sometimes that's even more fascinating. There's also a quiet pressure in society. If you say you don't follow sports, people often respond with surprise. Really? Not even football? What do you watch then? But psychology reminds us that human interests are incredibly diverse. Some people are fascinated by astronomy, some by music, some by economics, some by the behavior of the human mind itself. Sports are just one of many ways people find excitement and meaning. Here's a surprising insight. People who aren't obsessed with sports often develop strong interests in other domains. Science, art, writing, technology, philosophy. Because their attention isn't pulled toward sports culture, their curiosity often travels in different directions. Sometimes those directions lead to deep expertise or creativity. In other words, not following sports doesn't mean lacking passion. It simply means passion appears somewhere else. Picture this moment. A stadium erupts after a last-minute goal. Now, picture another moment. Someone finally understands a difficult concept after hours of thinking, or finishes writing something meaningful, or discovers a new idea that changes how they see the world. Both moments create joy. Both release dopamine. Both feel powerful. But they come from different psychological sources: competition versus curiosity, spectacle versus understanding. So the next time you see someone who isn't excited about a big match, it doesn't mean they're boring. It doesn't mean they're missing out. It simply means their brain finds excitement in different places. Some people cheer in stadiums. Others get goosebumps from ideas. Some chase goals on a field. Others chase questions inside their minds. And the beautiful thing about psychology is this: human passion comes in countless forms. Sports are just one of them. If you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind everyday behaviors, consider subscribing to the channel. Because sometimes the most interesting stories aren't about the game on the field. They're about the minds watching it.